It's Thursday, October 9, 2025, and there are two major weather systems brewing on different sides of the country that could cause significant impacts for some locations. First, we have a cluster of showers and storms over parts of South Carolina, Georgia, and Florida, and even going out into the Atlantic Ocean. This is where we will have a coastal storm form over the next few days that will cause impacts across the East Coast. And we now have Tropical Storm Priscilla just off the coast of Mexico that is allowing tropical moisture to spill into parts of the Southwest, and this could cause significant flooding in some locations over the next few days. And we also have Tropical Storm Jerry that will have some impacts for the Caribbean and some effects for that coastal system as it develops. So let's talk about Tropical Storm Jerry, as it is impacting parts of the Caribbean right now, but will have some effects in that coastal storm as it develops. Right now, it's still a tropical storm, but is forecast to develop into a hurricane as it moves northward, but eventually will curve east as the coastal system at the same time will start to develop and mature along the east coast. We also have some spaghetti plots taking it close to the East Coast, but most of the members go right out to sea, and that's why the National Hurricane Center's cone does curve eastward. But it will be interesting to see how close Jerry does get to the coastal system, as it will be transferring some of its energy as the coastal storm, makes its way up the East Coast. And you can see with Jerry's intensity forecast here over the next few days, it does most likely get to a weak Category 1 hurricane, but will probably stay a tropical storm most of its life. So this is not a major type system that will have a huge influence on the coastal storm as it develops, but there will be some transference of some energy as the storm system does develop. So here's the wind gust forecast over the next few days, and you can see there's actually a cold front to the north of Jerry that comes down and then pushes it eastward. So that's the main driver of Jerry making the turn, but that same cold front is going to take some of the energy from Jerry, specifically the tropical moisture, and throw it at the coastal storm and help to develop the coastal system as it starts to mature. And you can see that a bit better here in what we call precipitable water, which is basically the amount of moisture the atmosphere holds for rain shower activity. So you can see that tropical moisture getting pushed towards the coastal system as it does develop, and then Jerry eventually going out to sea, or at least curving out to sea at the same time. So that coastal system will have some tropical moisture and elements to work with, and it'll almost behave similar to a tropical storm, as it will have plenty of those heavy rain showers and gusty winds and also coastal effects as it makes its way up the East Coast. So here's a look at future radar here as we push through the next few days. That coastal system developing by Friday afternoon and really starting to intensify as we push into Saturday's forecast. So you can see the rainfall starting to pick up along the Carolina coastline, and this is where we could have also some stronger wind gusts. And then it makes its way up towards the mid-Atlantic states, and then eventually starts to weaken a bit as it makes its way closer to southern New England, and then will start to pull offshore going into Tuesday's forecast. And here's a look at the wind gust timeline, really starting to ramp up, like I mentioned, by Friday afternoon. Early Saturday, getting those wind gusts above 50 miles per hour in spots, and then starting to get closer to 60 miles per hour off the coast of New Jersey and Long Island as it hits its peak by Sunday afternoon and evening, and then starts to wind down a bit as it pushes closer to New England, but still some strong wind gusts expected. So here's a look at the peak wind gusts Saturday night as the storm starts to get to its mature point, and we could see some gusts in excess of 50 miles per hour for parts of the Outer Banks, and then going up into parts of southern Virginia near Virginia Beach as well. And then if you head far enough to the west, it goes down to about 20 miles per hour, so not nearly as bad. Certainly coastal effects will be the highest impact from this storm. And as the storm travels northward by Sunday morning, we could see some significant wind gusts for parts of the Chesapeake going out to coastal Delaware and Maryland, and then eventually making it up to parts of New Jersey, where the effects will be felt a little bit more going into Sunday afternoon and evening. And as you can see by Sunday evening, really starting to affect the New York City metro, going out into Long Island, parts of Connecticut as well, as we will see probably the strongest wind gusts from the system over parts of Long Island, potentially over parts of coastal New Jersey as well, upwards of 50 miles per hour possible in several locations. And as the storm system winds down, it'll still pack a punch for southern New England, but not nearly as strong as it will be for parts of Long Island and also New Jersey. But upwards of 50 mile per hour wind gusts not out of question for parts of the Outer Cape, but most locations wind gusts above 40 to 30 miles per hour are expected. We also have significant rainfall in the forecast where you can track upwards of 6 inches of rain possible for coastal Carolina. It does go down a little bit the farther north you go, probably in excess of 3 inches for a good portion of the mid Atlantic states, and then going up into parts of southern New England as well. So this will certainly be a rainmaker, which is courtesy of some of that tropical moisture coming in from Jerry. But we'll be tracking some coastal effects with this storm system, specifically coastal flooding as well. So as you can see, the wave heights from both systems, significant waves for parts of Bermuda from Jerry passing, but the coastal system will be no slouch, producing upwards of 10 to 15 foot waves off the coast of North Carolina, and then those waves could be pretty high as well for parts of coastal New Jersey going up into New England, where you could see upwards of 10 to 15 foot waves, maybe even 20 foot waves for isolated locations. They'll be breaking well offshore though, but definitely some coastal effects and most likely some coastal flooding potential, specifically in parts of New Jersey, the Outer Banks, and then potentially for parts of New England and Long Island as well. So this is something we'll be watching closely as the storm system develops through the weekend. And we also have coastal flood warnings up and down the East Coast for the impending storm. We have coastal flood watches out for parts of New Jersey, Long Island, and going up into New England for the waves and beach erosion expected, and also the higher astronomical high tide, all factors with the storm system moving in. Now we head over to the southwest, where Tropical Storm Priscilla continues to throw tropical moisture into places like Arizona, New Mexico, and Southern California, and we'll continue to see that spread into parts of the region going into tomorrow. There's a level 3 out of 4 risk for flash flooding. This is very significant, so if you do live in these areas, specifically in central Arizona, make sure to have emergency alerts enabled on your phone in case a flash flood warning or emergency is issued for the area. And this risk shifts on Saturday a bit eastward to eastern Arizona and parts of New Mexico, but the risk is a little lower, just level 2 out of 4, but still significant for the region. So let's take a look at future radar here. As that moisture from Priscilla makes its way into the forecast through Friday afternoon, you can see those downpours making their way into the forecast and some really heavy rain out of some of those downpours, and then continuing into the forecast on Saturday as well. So a couple rounds of heavy rain. Certainly too much for this area, especially where it's so dry most of the year. The ground just cannot accept this kind of water all at once. So we will have some localized flash flooding, most likely in several locations tomorrow in parts of Arizona, then shifting to parts of New Mexico, Utah, and Colorado going into Saturday's forecast. It does include Arizona again, so a significant risk for parts of the Southwest. Meanwhile, in the northwest, some of that moisture from Priscilla will eventually make it into Montana and collide with some cooler air from another system out in the Pacific Northwest that will potentially produce a little bit of snow for parts of Montana. It definitely looks a little less now in the forecast than what we were thinking a few days ago, but certainly enough moisture to do so in parts of Montana and definitely some cold air. So we'll see what happens here as we still have a few more days to iron out this forecast, but definitely significant snow for parts of southern Canada if you do live in those locations. And here's that estimated snowfall. For the mountains, it looks like it's going to be a little bit better. We'll have some higher amounts for parts of the Rockies, but then you get into the plains, or at least the flatlands, going into parts of Montana and then into southern Canada, where there could be a little bit of snow from this, but not looking quite as significant as it did a few days ago. Now, looking ahead, we have a few things to watch, specifically the coastal storm that will be making its way up the East Coast and causing some impacts. We also have Tropical Storm Jerry, which will most likely become a hurricane, making an approach to Bermuda, but also influencing that tropical storm as well. And we also have the southwest flooding, where it will continue to rain quite a bit in parts of Arizona, then shifting to New Mexico, Utah, and parts of Colorado going into Saturday's forecast as well. And then snow potential for the Rockies. Not a lot, but at least it's a sign of the times as we push into the second half of fall and then going into winter. We'll see more opportunities of snow over the next several weeks, and I'll have updates of the forecast as we head through the next several days.